I'm Laura Rogers, joined by National Public Radio's Rylan Barton, getting some insight from you, as we like to do, especially right now, about things going on in state and federal government. And I want to ask you about House Bill 775. This pertains to the state income tax, which we know the state GOP has been very adamant about continuing to cut the income tax, if not eliminate it altogether. And this legislation pertains to how that could be done in the future. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, now that we're late in the legislative session, this is now a lot of times when bills that we hadn't really seen moving or policies that we hadn't seen come up will make it into a bill late in the session, start moving really quickly, especially when it's related to taxes. So there's this bill, it's a 4-page long bill that was related to expanding tax increment financing in Louisville. But this has now been changed to alter the state's income tax to change how the trigger system works. So right now, the state can lower the state's income tax, and Republican-led legislature has been in the process of doing this just about every year. There's a lot more options to do that. Under the old model, there had to be certain metrics that were met, that the state's budget reserve trust fund, the so-called rainy day fund, was big enough, and also that going forward, the state would be able to bring in enough money or more money than it would if this tax cut had been in place. Now that metric has been changed a little bit to allow lawmakers to even lower the state income tax by smaller increments than half a percentage point, which is kind of the way it's been marching forward in recent years. So even just 0.1%. So even if those metrics aren't fully met, but they're close to it, lawmakers would still be able to lower the state's income tax. So supporters of this say this is an opportunity to return taxpayer dollars or leave taxpayer dollars in taxpayers' pockets. Critics of it really worry that this is hollowing out slowly the state's ability to generate money for itself. And this has been going on for a long time. We already know that just from this year, because lawmakers have approved lowering the state income tax by half a percentage point, it's going to cost the state almost $800 million a year, which is a really significant amount for a state budget. That doesn't come back unless the state is able to generate more tax dollars through other ways. If just, there are people making more money in the state. And that's what Republicans are arguing, that it'll make the economic environment more favorable going forward. But forecasts really show that it's pretty unclear that Kentucky's going to be able to meet these targets going forward. That's why Republicans are taking this opportunity to try and make it easier so that even if the economic reality isn't as sunny, that lawmakers can still kind of reduce that tax rate,
which in the long run could also affect the state budget when we see spending cuts. And moving to the federal level, somebody that's not happy with the budget cuts he's seen, he wants to see more, is Congressman Thomas Massie, hence voting no against President Trump's continuing resolution to fund the government. And that has President Trump very dissatisfied with Representative Massie.
President Trump's really been trying to get Republicans in line. There's really narrow margins in both the House and the Senate for Republicans to pass bills, and it requires most Republicans to stay together. So they only had a few votes to give up, and Thomas Massie was the one Republican to vote against it in the House. This still hasn't passed the Senate. There's going to be a big discussion there where the margin's even tighter, and Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky has also indicated that he will vote no on that at the moment. The Senate, of course, has that 60-vote threshold unless the Republican leaders there in the Senate are able to find some clever ways to get that bill passed. So Massie, he's been flexing this ability over this year, this new Congress, that since there's such a narrow margin, and as many people are describing as a maverick in Congress, he's taking these principled stands when, really his opposition to this is that it spends too much money. It doesn't cut enough. President Trump went out on social media and called for somebody to primary Congressman Massie. This isn't the first time this has happened. He got mad at him after Massie threatened to vote against, it was a big COVID funding bill back in 2020, which forced lawmakers to come back to Washington and vote on that bill because of that stand that he took then and irked the president at that point. So Massie says he's not afraid politically, that he's survived this before. He's really become a different sort of Republican in this new Republican-controlled Congress. And he's been, I think, enjoying the spotlight, but also trying to get his issues to the top of the heap on these big critical votes.
And a couple of other members of our congressional delegation, Republicans, also voting no, this time on President Trump's labor secretary pick. What can you tell us about Senator McConnell and Senator Paul and why they opposed President Trump's choice for that position?
Right. They opposed it's former Congressman Lori Chavez de Raymer. McConnell came out saying that she supports policies that would force hardworking Americans into union membership. She's been a pro-labor, pro-union congressperson. This is something that I think especially McConnell's version of the Republican Party has really opposed and tried to work against, noting that Kentucky's a right to work state. But I think it's also interesting here to point out that at this point in time where McConnell's no longer the Republican leader in the Senate, that he's really able to stretch out even more and kind of go out opposing some of Trump's policies. We've seen this shift in the Republican Party, certainly during the Trump years, where McConnell's really become emblematic of an older version of the party. It's changing, where something like labor has really gotten muddy under this new version of the Republican Party and in the Trump administration. It's going to be interesting to see where Republicans land on this, and if there are some kind of pro-labor policies that would ever be promoted and passed by the Trump administration.
NPR's Rylan Barton, we appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.